Hello, I'm Nan Simonson. I wrote my book, Aging Powerfully, less than a year ago when I was about to turn 70 and decided that that's not old age. Old age is when you finally give up. And at that time, I decided that if I wanted to, and God willing, I could go another 10, 20, 30 years, 1, 2, or 3 decades. And that's still my mantra. And I am always inspired by those who have gone before me. For example, I read voraciously the book The Blue Zones by Dan Buettner about populations, 5 of them in the United States, that have octogenarians, that are centenarians, 100 years old and still thriving. And if you don't know where those blue zones are, they include Ikaria, Greece, uh, the Okinawa island off of Japan, the coast, or the, oh, Nan, don't tell me I'm not going to be able to do this. That's funny. Uh, Okinawa, Ikaria, Sardinia, Italy, um, Costa Rica. Why can't I think of the area in Costa Rica? And one that I'm particularly proud of, and that is, the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica. And then one I'm particularly proud of, it's 15 minutes from my home, and that is Loma Linda, California, particularly the Adventist population who, by practice of their spiritual beliefs, many are vegan or vegetarian, and they believe that our body is on loan from God and that our job is to take care of it, which they do with regular exercise, not smoking, not drinking, and some general physical and mental care that the entire group embraces, and that includes communities spent together on a regular basis, time with people that they love. So I pay attention to those things, and I recently went again to Rancho La Puerta. I've mentioned it before. 2 months ago, I went for a week. It's in Tecate, Mexico, which is in the Baja area of Mexico. And I spent a week loving it. I had gone to take a class that Chef AJ was, and Chef AJ is a vegan chef that many of you know about. She's a front runner in the movement to be good to animals, and she is a original, or her purpose initially was as an ethical vegan. She didn't want to hurt animals, and so at first, for her first, what, 20, 30 years as a vegan, ate junk food and was very overweight and miserably unwell until she found that whole food plant-based was what was going to change that, and I'll call it save her health. So she was holding a class there. I had been interviewed by her. She had been interviewed by me, but we hadn't met. So I thought, I'm going to go to the ranch and take advantage of this beautiful place that Leisure and Travel magazine consider the #1 health and fitness resort in the world. And it's only a few hours from where I live in Riverside, California. So spent a week there, and then just went last week as Chef AJ's guest and sous chef to help her with 3 classes that she was doing. So what a treat. And each time I was there, the founder of the ranch, and so I'll give you a little bit of history, Deborah Szekely, Szekely, and it's spelled Szekely. And so I don't believe the Z is pronounced, and I think the S is Szekely, and that's the way you'll hear it spoken if you ever watch an interview of hers, and you can look up Deborah Szekely, Szekely, and videos and see what comes up. Uh, she did a number of interviews in 2017, sorry. But she went to that ranch with her husband, who was a professor, and had spent time in the South Sea Islands, mainly Tahiti, curing people of chronic diseases with a methodology. Well, she was 18, he was 36. They fell in love because she became his secretary at one point, uh, to help him grow his practice, not there at Rancho La Puerta. But anyway, they fell in love, they got married, and I was married at 19, so it sounds like she was very young, and yet she had a long marriage until he passed. I did too, 40 years. In any case, she, at 1940, with her husband, became the founders of Rancho La Puerta, and there was nothing but open ground there. They charged people to come and told them to bring their own tents. And the story goes on and on. It's really quite interesting. She worked very hard, and he did too. But ultimately, they built it to what it is today, which is this beautiful um, and and fastidiously maintained, natural, almost botanic garden with classes all day, every day, and anywhere from 3 to 6 choices in any given hour of what you can do to expand your knowledge of your physiology, of new forms of exercise like Nia. Pilates is offered, yoga is offered, stretching, fascial release techniques, just again on and on. And every night there's a lecture to help people learn something new and expand their horizons. So every time I've been there, she speaks. What's remarkable about her now is that she's about a half a year away from turning 100, and yet she still is she's the matriarch of the place, and every week she comes and speaks and answers questions. And what has made Rancho La Puerta so important is the history of it being a wellness retreat, helping people cure diseases, chronic and life-threatening diseases, by adopting a simpler life. One of the things you see when you go there, if you choose to take the hike there, or which can be either which will allow you to either be shuttled there or to walk to breakfast. And it's about 2 miles, 2.5 miles to their organic garden, which they've had all along. The guests used to pay to be there, bring their own tent, and have to spend 2.5 hours every day, or is it once a week? I think it was every day, working in the gardens. But they had their food to table determination set back then, organically grown produce, where good agricultural methods were used so that the food is not only safe to eat and not sprayed, but also eaten soon after it was picked, and food was offered seasonally. Well, I did the walk and the tour. This was my second time, and had this marvelous breakfast. And the head of the garden explained to us how at the end of a week he'll look at what it looks like they're going to have available. They let the chefs know, and the chefs will create a menu for the following week that they feed the guests. Almost everything we ate, not everything, but almost everything we ate was on the grounds. Now they are pescatarian. They have been vegetarian forever. She believes that the if any animal product is to be eaten, it should be as a sideline. For example, I am whole food plant based. I ate no animal product or fish or egg or cheese or dairy. But what was offered, a salad this big, would be a little ramekin this big maybe of, let's say, tuna or um, cheese on the top of a salad, a goat cheese. They have goats. They milk their goats. They make cheese from the goats. They don't serve alcohol except for a special occasion, but they have vineyards now growing that will be organic vineyards. So no, this isn't an ad for Rancho La Puerta, but this is an explanation of why I am enthralled by not only what has evolved there, but by the person who helped create it with her husband. Because we've kind of gone, they were the originators in some ways of veganism. Not really, because we had the Ayurvedic and the Indian uh, adoption of ahimsa and no beef, and there were rules, there have been rules for centuries about restrictions on animal foods, but they were considered very fringe when they opened Rancho La Puerta because they had yoga and they were vegetarian with just a little bit of animal product or a little bit of fish. And they ate food as grown, and they made everything that they ate there. A lot of institutions bring things in bulk and simply warm things. That's the way most restaurants do things now. And so the food isn't a whole food. It's quite often produced, manufactured somewhere else, and then just heated or plated in an attractive way at the restaurant. She she every Wednesday will answer questions, and I went online looking for something from her and saw that there was a 2017 video where she was interviewed by a group that it might have been National Geographic, about important people in our world. And she was being interviewed because she has donated tremendously to the area of Tecate, Mexico. They did early on, first bus for schools. They gave bicycles to everyone that worked at the ranch because they were about 5 minutes out of town, 5 miles out of town. And so the employees got to be known as those people on the bicycles. She takes good care of people, and they employed a lot, and they still do. But what I was going to say earlier is that we need to go back to what they created that was so fringe there, and has become fringe now because of mass marketing and because of conglomerates. The big conglomerates that now own 90% of, or take ownership of 90% of what we eat today, control what we eat. And what I believe and what we talk about at Lifestyle Medicine, the I'm working with a lifestyle medical clinic and have been now going on 4 years, includes one of the pillars of health. Well, all of the pillars of health they espouse, and that is getting good rest, movement every day, exercise every day, community and the importance of others in our lives, and then food. And with lifestyle medicine, it is whole food, plant based, or mainly plant based. And if meat or dairy or fish are eaten, they are a complement to the meal, a condiment, if you will, not the plate that is mainly an animal product and then a little bit of vegetables. They are mainly vegetables there with little bits of other things being offered. We can look at her and her sharpness. She reads voraciously. At almost 100, she's got eyes that work well enough that she reads voraciously. She is as sharp as a tack. At almost 100, she takes questions from the audience. She doesn't hear as well, and so she has somebody that might have to help her with what was said in the back of the room. And she answers without hesitation. She remembers dates, she remembers details. And she talked last time I was there about what she does. She walks every day. As of the 2017, when this 1 hour interview was done with her, at that time, she was even then taking Pilates classes 3 times a week. She had a naval SEAL that would train her, that would come to her house and work with her. And this was what, at 88, 89, that would work with her with weights. So she has always maintained physicality. She has always maintained a very clean diet, minimal amount of what we consider in this country the main part of a meal, which is what we call the protein part. We are so overproteinated, that's not a word, that our body can only deal with so much. The ideal is 10 to 15% of calories in protein. We could live on as little as 5 to 7, but to cover all bases in terms of age, like the young need more, the very older, I'm one of them now at almost 71, we need a little more protein. We can get all of that from plants. We don't need anything else. And anything that's in excess goes into storage as fat. Protein doesn't make our muscles grow. It's just a cellular cementing and growing nutrient, but anything over that ends up getting stored as fat, or goes through the kidneys and is excreted, which is one of the reasons why we have problems in our country with renal conditions and renal failure, and cardiovascular disease and diabetes. The diabetes that we see around us is partially because we eat way too many calories, partially because the calories are mainly from non-foods, and that is processed foods, which she abhors. Their foods are everything they serve, everything they offer is made from real foods, processed minimally, like a whole wheat bread that they offer from real foods. And they offer a really nice gluten-free bread that is processed from whole grains like millet and amaranth and oat groats, which are all a gluten-free grain. But what I'm fighting for now, is the acceptance of going. They took it before anybody else did, and they had to promote it, and they were called wacky. I feel somewhat wacky, because I'm trying to instill in people who want to live long and well. What's the point of living long if you're sick most of the time? Most people don't think they want to live long because they're starting to get sick at younger and younger ages, and just see that as a prolongation of not feeling well. of spending our time in doctor's offices to the detriment of your own budget, your own peace of mind, but also the budget of the country. They're predicting terrible end results with our medical costs going up and beyond any kind of a budget. So we, at least I, and I think maybe some of you that listen to this may see the value of embracing something that was introduced by this special couple in the 1940s at Rancho La Puerta. They are now, what is that, 60, 70, 80 years a destination and more popular than ever, helping people succeed in whatever direction they want to take their health because they're so relevant. And yet we're still going against the grain, because the grain right now is processed food, foods that are not real foods, so our body doesn't know what to do with them. Our microbiome cannot handle them. Instead of choosing foods that may take a little bit more time, but not always. If you think about it, grabbing an apple, grabbing a sweet potato that was cooked at the beginning of the week and making a meal out of that by splitting that open and putting in some black beans and some steamed broccoli and some delicious sauce or pico de gallo, that doesn't take time, and yet that's real food, as opposed to going through a drive-through where most of what is in that flour tortilla, in most cases, which has all kinds of chemicals added to it, including sugar. In most sandwich breads that are offered in fast food, they have sugar because we love the sugar whether we can taste it or not, and it helps us get hooked. And our bodies are not able to handle the amount of glucose that we're putting in them anymore. And that is from fast foods, from processed foods, and from almost everything we have in our kitchen, if you read labels, that have added sugars to them. So let me tell you, and then I'll let you go. I think I've made my point. Is it worth swimming upstream to put ourselves in a position where life feels good and exciting, and we're passionate about the days coming up and the weeks coming up and the years coming up because we see possibilities and we have purpose? And is it worth taking care of ourselves to make that happen? Yes. Is taking care of ourselves something difficult? No, it was a little wonky back then because they did it in pure ways. And it's wonky right now because, again, we're doing it in pure ways, and everything around us, including mass media, tries to convince us that we're missing out on nirvana, the hamburger, the photo on TV on an ad with a hamburger that is completely indiscernible with crispy, crunchy fried stuff in it and drippy orange stuff that's not even cheese coming out of it and who knows what else, and telling people this is the way Americans eat. We're killing ourselves. And I'm passionate, just passionate about hoping that people see that we don't have to do it that way. It's not so hard to do it differently. There are leaders that can show you how, and I hope that my book helps with that, because I point you to all of the leaders in the cooking field, in the neuroscience field, in the cardiology field, in the gastroenterology field, that can help you see that not only is it worth it because they all changed their life this way, but that it will give you the comfort to know that you can live until you die. And that's, you've heard me say before, is squaring the curve. Live, 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 live. Boom. A week of illness, maybe one day of illness, maybe you drop dead when you go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, as my 94-year-old friend Margaret Fast did. Boy, I honored that woman. She lived until she died, and she walked every day down the boulevard 2 miles. Anyway, okay, so in an article that was posted in Health Conscious and Travel. Best Healthy Aging Advice from Rancho La Puerta. Some of the things that were noted um, are some quotes from her, first of all. And this article was written about 8 or 9 years ago. But she says, "I just don't feel old. I keep waiting, but it hasn't happened." I mean, in their 60s, some people are feeling old because the food we're putting in our bodies is destroying us at a cellular level, and everything therefore hurts, and our numbers start getting really off, and we can't sustain our organs properly because we're not feeding them well enough. She says, and then some specifics, the bullet points. Wake up every day with a wiggle. She says, I know that this is terrifically corny, and yet think about dogs and cats, how they never get up without a deep, luxurious stretch. And then they roll around and they stretch a little bit more. She says there's a reason they do that. No matter how busy and pressed for time you feel, take a few moments, open your eyes to greet the day with a deep breath or two, and even deeper stretches with an enthusiastic wiggle and a plan for what you're going to get done during that day. She says, I do that every day. She says, ask yourself, what surprises might this day hold? I like that. Have a reason to be here. Call it a passion. But whatever you call it, it's key to your staying young at heart. You have to have a reason you want to live longer, or it's not going to happen. Me, I can't stop making plans. I'm always thinking about what I want to get done next. Enjoy getting physical. And she talks about her Pilates practice, and she talks about her weight training, and she talks about her hikes up the hills behind the ranch. And all put together, you'll see that she's doing something 7 days out of 7 days. It's about finding joy in movement, whether it's dance, whether it's gardening, but finding joy in it. A lot of people think they don't like exercise because they haven't found something they enjoy doing. I've discovered running. I never ran before. Then I signed up for a race, 3 months ago? And this coming Sunday, even with a hurt knee, I'm going to do my 10K. I've already run 6.4 and then a couple weeks later 6.8, and a 10K is 6.2, so I know I can do it. I've nailed a 10K, but I'm going to run it in the race, and I'll be the slowest 70-year-old there, but I don't care. Take on something you haven't done before. I found I really love to run. I used to think it was awkward and kind of a clumsy movement. Now I get lost in it and I arrive an hour and a half in, and barely know I've left. The other thing I've discovered loving is cycling. I love getting on my bike and riding an hour and a half. Wouldn't have guessed that before either. Find something you love and do it. And then eat from the garden. We call it, and she said we originated the term spa food. But the truth is, we grow our own food or get it from somebody else who does. There's farmers markets everywhere. And there are smaller stores that bring in things and replace them on almost a daily basis. I like Trader Joe's because I believe the things that I get there have not been in some warehouse forever. Farmers markets are better than that. Growing things in your own garden when you can is even better than that. Grow what you can and eat seasonally and eat as little meat and animal product as possible. Eat slowly and mindfully. I'm reading this more and more from everybody, gastroenterologists as well as the whole food plant-based advocates, because we're getting a lot of fiber. We want to drink a lot of water to keep that bulky and it moves through us comfortably and quickly. But also chewing and chewing and chewing and chewing. almost to a cream, so that our intestinal tract doesn't have to work too hard breaking down big chunky things or having to pass them through. Um, you'll find you'll be satisfied with smaller portions when you choose slowly and mindfully. Forget any preconceived notions of feeling deprived. Eating like this can be utterly delicious, as evidenced by the recipes that actually I took home from the ranch when Chef AJ prepared her whole foods that were all plant-based. And then narrow your focus to avoid stress. There are good things about getting older. By the time you get to a certain age, you know your capacity and you know what's life enhancing and you know what isn't. You know how to choose your thinking. Someone tries to bring you down or distract you, and you say, I don't have to fiddle with that. Part of this process of choice is to, and I'm reading her quote, is to think of health as an investment. There's always the other demands on your time and energy, and it's all too easy to set your own needs aside. But if you want to be here, still moving, shaking, laughing, wiggling, and doing, 20 years from now, there are choices to be made, and you're old enough to know how to make them as we get into our older years. So she's basically saying evaluate what you choose to let stress you, and override those thoughts, supersede those thoughts with thoughts of positive outcomes, of enthusiastic opportunities that are exciting opportunities that you can enthusiastically jump into. Well, that's what I wanted to say. It's more of what you've heard me say, but it's also very much what I've seen from, again, another person who within, well, May of next year, there's a huge party planned. The ranch is already completely booked up. Deborah Szekely turns 100, and she's going to do it in style. Okay, I'm reading something that is one of the inspirational quotes from the ranch that they have on boards all over the grounds, and it says, and in the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years. Okay, I hope you're having a great day, because I know I am. Pass this on. Subscribe to my Power Agers group. Give it a thumbs up. All those things, as you probably know, matter and help get the word out. And take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.